Welcome to LifePath's 23rd annual virtual PICPA Thanksgiving Luncheon. I'm Ashley Russo, and I'm so happy to be here with you. I know our community always looks forward to attending this luncheon in person every year to kick off the holidays. So, although we're doing it a little differently, we think it's even more important than ever to gather together and celebrate what we're thankful for while supporting such an impactful organization, LifePath. We're making history today as we bring the luncheon to your homes and offices. LifePath, with the support of PICPA, provides high-quality services to those who need specialized support in many areas of their lives. Some of these services include professional guidance, experience with the arts, and skills training, all in an environment full of respect and dignity. Today, we'll hear from some of our most generous sponsors, who I'd like to thank personally for giving their support, even during such a difficult year. All of our sponsors know what it means to truly help make the greater Lehigh Valley and southeastern Pennsylvania a better place for individuals with autism, intellectual, and developmental disabilities. Compassionate care is crucial in the success of these incredible individuals, and thanks to your support, we're able to help them achieve their success. Today will be filled with wonderful messages and engagement, but I'm most excited to raise money for this impactful organization. That's right, you can directly support LifePath right now today. Just text 1974 to 44321. That's 1974 to 44321. Since 1974, LifePath has been bettering the community and creating a space where all are welcome. And today we can aid in continuing their success by donating. LifePath is using this year's proceeds to build swings on their campus for their clients to enjoy. Each swing costs $9,000 and can bring happiness to the LifePath community. Every amount counts, so thank you in advance. And now I'd like to introduce our presenting sponsor and such an outstanding leader in our community, George Hlavik.
Thanks, Ashley, and good morning. On behalf of Hoffman, Hlavik, and Easterly, we are extremely happy to support LifePath and its critical mission as this year's presenting sponsor. Although I'm sure that I speak on behalf of everyone in saying that I wish we were all together today for LifePath's traditional day before Thanksgiving event, I know that we have a large crowd of LifePath supporters watching today remotely. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Your continued support of LifePath is crucial to its ability to provide necessary services to people with autism, intellectual, and developmental disabilities throughout the greater Lehigh Valley and southeastern Pennsylvania regions. Over the past 20 years, I've seen firsthand the incredible work that LifePath does to enhance the lives of these individuals. We are all thankful for LifePath, and LifePath is thankful for you. I would also like to thank the PICPA for their partnership in making this event today an annual success. Each year, this event raises over $200,000 with the proceeds supporting LifePath's programs and services. Although today is different than what we have all grown accustomed to over the past 20 years, what remains the same is the incredible commitment that LifePath and all of its employees make every single day of the year to its consumers and residents. While we reflect today and tomorrow about all the things that we have to be thankful for in our individual lives, please keep LifePath and its employees and consumers and residents in your thoughts and prayers as well. Now, it's my great pleasure to introduce the CEO of LifePath, Paul Coleman.
Thank you, George. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. The holidays are upon us. 2020 is coming to a close, and I know that we're all looking forward to a new year. Even in a year like 2020, LifePath has a lot to be thankful for. Most importantly, our direct support professionals. Our staff, who we call DSPs, didn't have the choice to go virtual when the coronavirus hit us back in March. LifePath's 24/7. No one was furloughed. We need our staff to be on the job. In that situation of need, it was truly a blessing that our people answered the call. It was late on a Friday night when we found out about our first case. Staff didn't go home, they took care of business. It has been a challenging year. When we were facing those challenges, it was our good people who pulled us through. I can share something lighter though. One of our former DSPs, who has stayed in touch with us and the people she took care of, came across this wonderful product. She knew immediately that a swing set for people who are confined to wheelchairs would be an amazing hit with our people. She was right. She and her family stepped up and donated the funds for that swing to be installed at her former workplace. In a year that parks and community recreation were shut down, it was great to have such a pleasant and soothing diversion for people right in their own backyard. I love that it's not a solo swing. Visiting families have been able to share it together. The swing sets cost $9,000 to be installed. They're very solid and should last over a decade. With your help, we hope to install 10 more of them this year. Last year, we were truly gratified when a good number of supporters helped us with our featured ask. Please step up for us and the people we serve this year. I'm not through being thankful, though. I want to thank everyone who supports LifePath. You make our work better. Let's all look forward to being together in person next year. Happy Thanksgiving. And now I'd like to introduce Bob Makos.
Happy Thanksgiving, Paul. PNC Bank is proud to once again present the prestigious Outstanding Family of the Year Award. The award goes to a family that has gone above and beyond in their commitment to support consumers of LifePath. This year's award goes to individuals who have definitely proven their dedication to the many people that LifePath serves. I am honored to name LifePath's Direct Support Professionals as the Family of the Year. LifePath Direct Support Professionals, also known as DSPs, are committed to enhancing lives of those they serve by providing a high quality of living that fulfills each person's needs while pursuing passions and activities that enable them to reach their full potential. During the quarantine, LifePath residents were not able to visit their families, and the DSPs became family. While many people quarantined and little was known about COVID-19, the LifePath DSPs continued to show up and care for the people whose lives depended on them. The people they served needed them, and they were there. Actor and writer Peter Capaldi said, "Real heroes are all around us and uncelebrated." Today we change that and we say, thank you, LifePath Direct Support Professionals, for your unwavering commitment, compassion, and devotion to the people you serve. Congratulations.
Thanks, Bob. It's great to see you virtually. My name is John Erzman. I'm president of the LifePath Foundation Board of Directors.
And I'm Kai Karsh, president of the LifePath Inc. Board of Directors.
Our work is focused on securing funds to enhance the work of LifePath. We are so grateful for everyone's support and especially thankful to PNC Bank for recognizing and acknowledging the importance of our DSPs. They are the backbone of LifePath.
They are truly dedicated people who go above and beyond to provide exceptional care to our individuals. Thank you, PNC, for honoring our DSPs with this award.
Thank you for everything you do to enhance the lives of our individuals. Thanks again.
Back to you, Ashley.
Congratulations to all our direct support providers. You've worked so hard throughout this year to continue supporting your clients, and we are so happy to honor you today. Hey, don't forget, you can help too. Grab your phones. You can still donate to LifePath by texting 1974 to 44321. That's 1974 to 44321. We also have a live auction and raffle going on right now. Please visit lifepath.org to bid and raffle. All proceeds will go towards the purchase of these beautiful swings worth $9,000 each. Any help you can lend is appreciated and will help LifePath continue their mission. Here to join us next is Will Valecki of PICPA. The partnership that this organization has formed with LifePath has impacted so many lives and truly moves their mission forward. Let's see what he has to say.
Thanks, Ashley, and congratulations to LifePath's Direct Support Professionals. It's an honor for the PICPA to be part of this wonderful event and to have been part of the event for the past 23 years. As the current Lehigh Valley Chapter President, I'd like to say thank you for joining us today. LifePath is committed to serving people with intellectual disabilities and autism. They have over 100 community homes and 4 adult day programs that are located in 7 Pennsylvania counties. Thanks to LifePath, people in our community are able to receive the care that enriches lives. LifePath is a valued resource to our community, and the PICPA is proud to support them. Community support is very important to the PICPA. Each year, we honor a member of the Lehigh Valley whose service goes above and beyond. This year's award winner is Tony DeRay, founder and CEO of BSI Corporate Benefits. A dedicated community leader, Tony actively leads local councils, boards, government, and health committees, as well as serving as an expert employee benefits consultant and volunteer. Tony is a true advocate for LifePath. He supports many of their activities and programs throughout the year. During the quarantine, Tony wanted to acknowledge the direct support professionals' commitment to the consumers, so he donated money to buy them all lunch as a small token of his appreciation. That was over 700 lunches. Tony leads by example and is very deserving of this honor. Thank you and congratulations, Tony.
Thank you, Will. Hello, everyone. My favorite day of the year. For the last decade, I've been participating in this event, and it's the time where our community comes together to celebrate our community here in the greater Lehigh Valley, celebrate each other's success, celebrate this amazing organization, LifePath. It's a little bit different this year. We're not all physically together, but hopefully there's some of that same mentality with this event and allows us to reflect on the year. Normally I get an opportunity to introduce the keynote speaker. This year, a little bit of curveball that I got thrown. And I was given the opportunity or been graced with the ability to accept the Community Service Person of the Year award. It's such a humbling experience for me. And I certainly am here to accept this award, not just on behalf of myself, but all of my employees at BSI that come along for this journey with me when we give back to the community. I want to say thank you to the PICPA. I want to say thank you to our longtime client, LifePath. Your mission, your employees, the consumers that you represent are truly an inspiration to me and to all the individuals in our community. And I wanted to also send a shout out to one of my favorite people in the world, Chanel Pierre. Chanel is a longtime resident and consumer at LifePath. Chanel was going to be here with me today to accept this award along with me. But Chanel, I'll see you soon. You are truly one of the most inspiring people that I've ever met in my life, and I can't wait to see you soon. I love you. It's truly an honor. And this year, with the pandemic, our community, as everybody knows, is more in need than it's ever been. You have people struggling for the next meal, struggling potentially to find jobs, struggling with illness. Tremendous emotional toll this pandemic has taken on our community. And I think being recognized in a year like this year for being one of the so many individuals and leaders that I've seen that have truly looked at this event, this year that we're going through, and they've put our community and people that are less fortunate way ahead of them. So to be here to some degree representing not just myself or my employees, but entire community of business leaders that I have seen, in the Lehigh Valley, maybe more than I've seen anywhere else in the country where we do business, come together. Anything that could be done by our business leaders in this community, I have seen it and witnessed it, the charitable nature and the understanding that there is something at work here in the greater Lehigh Valley that's bigger than ourselves. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for this award. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to my longtime running mate, our Senior Vice President, Sean Hughes. He's represented LifePath for years and years at BSI, and he's been side by side with me as we've grown our business, and he's lived our mission as much as I have or any of our employees every day. So I'm thrilled to introduce Sean Hughes, and he's going to introduce our keynote speaker for today.
Thank you, Tony, and congratulations. I have the honor today of introducing our guest speaker, Mr. Jack McCallum. Jack is a product of the Lehigh Valley. He graduated from Muhlenberg College and also has a master's in English literature from Lehigh University. Jack started his writing career with the Bethlehem Globe. He's most known for his 28 years working at Sports Illustrated, where he had the opportunity to cover the 1992 men's Olympic basketball team, also known as the Dream Team, with players like Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird. Jack is also a member of the Writers Wing of the National Basketball Hall of Fame. Without further ado, Mr. Jack McCallum.
It is indeed an honor to be making my first virtual speech. Although I've done a lot of teaching, I'm sure many of my students were virtually listening when I lectured. Back in the 1930s, there was a very erudite sports writer. Yes, that type of human being exists. And his name was John Kiernan, and he worked for one of what was then a dozen New York City newspapers. Kiernan was a graduate of Columbia University, and he was invited back one year to give the commencement address. When some of the students got wind that a mere sports writer was giving the address, they staged a protest. Kiernan heard about it, got a little ticked off, and proceeded to give the address in Latin. So ladies and gentlemen, carpe diem. Don't worry, I never had Latin. This will be in English, sort of. Now, I thought I'd break the speech into 3 sections. I wish we had time for questions because that usually brings about the most interesting stuff. So if anyone wants to email me, I will leave it at the end of the speech. Perhaps by then, having my email is the last thing you would want. Anyway, part 1, I'm going to call the value of providence. Now, anyone who has had any measure of success would be crazy if he or she did not credit the value of luck or timing or fate, whatever you want to call it. I'll tell you about mine. I was a senior at Muhlenberg College in 1970. My father had run out of money, and I was working at a series of horrible part-time jobs, including one at the McCundry Foundry that was right out of Charles Dickens. My job was to pour molten iron into a mold, and when there was a spill out, as there sometimes was, the strategic safety measure was run like hell. So I knew I didn't want to do that, and all I really knew was that I wanted to write because that's all I could do. So I called up the morning call and offered my services, and they said, yeah, right. But someone there told me there was a newspaper in Bethlehem. So I called the late, great Globe-Times and somehow got the late, great managing editor, John Strohmeyer, on the phone. Incredibly, a part-time writer had just left the day before, and John said, all right, come on over for an interview. Now you have to understand how hilarious this was among my friends. I had long hair, I barely had a collared shirt, but off I went to a job interview. Now the job turned out to be part-time in sports and part-time as being the Lehigh County court reporter. Now I turned out to be an okay sports writer, and I also turned out to be the worst courthouse reporter in the history of civic journalism. Anyway, back to the interview. I found myself talking to Jack Collins, who was the sports editor. I was exaggerating my credentials all over the place. How that was possible, I don't know, since Muhlenberg didn't even have a journalism course. But as it happened, Jack also owned the Old Brewery Tavern, one of the Lehigh Valley's immortal watering holes, and one of his most enthusiastic clients was a Muhlenberg English professor. Now, every college had an English professor who drank too much. If they didn't have one, they had to hire one or invent one. Anyway, Jack says, do you know such and such? I won't give his name. And I said, sure, I've had classes with him. And Jack then says, okay, go across the street to Bethlehem Sporting Goods and buy a scorebook. You're going to cover the Becca High game tonight. Tonight, I said, and what's a Becca High? And that is honestly how I got my job. My friends and myself were flabbergasted. I stayed at the Globe-Times for the next 8 years, and it formed the foundation of what I became as a journalist. And I will never underrate the importance of the Globe-Times or the providence it took for me to get that first job. Now, part 2, I'm going to call The Coming of the Internet Monster. In the year 2000, I was in Sydney, Australia, at the Olympics for Sports Illustrated, one of 5 Olympic games that I've covered. Although I usually specialize in basketball, this particular year, I was just jumping around from sport to sport, and I drew the assignment to cover the Greco-Roman wrestling gold medal final. It matched an immortal Russian wrestler named Alexander Karelin against a Wyoming farm boy named Rulon Gardner, and Gardner beat him. It was a massive, massive upset since Karelin had literally never lost a match over like 20 years. So this was a great story. The only problem was that the match happened on a Tuesday, which was terrible for Sports Illustrated, a weekly magazine. Nobody would read my story until the following Wednesday at the earliest. Now, the flip side of that was that I had plenty of time to do research, write one of these long, long pieces, or what we called thumbsuckers. But meanwhile, there was this new creature called the internet, sportsillustrated.com. And this was going to be the first time I would be writing for that. So what we decided was that I would write a short story, mainly about Karelin for the website, and I would save the juicy Rulon Gardner story for the magazine. So I dash off the Karelin story, and that night I go to a victory party that Rulon Gardner's family was throwing for him. That's where I was going to collect my information for the big magazine story. But halfway through the party, one of Rulon's brothers shows up and begins passing out copies of my internet story on SI.com, the one that had very little about Rulon Gardner. and I see everyone reading. I see anger rising because, there's almost nothing about Rulon who won the damn match. And I envision one of these Wyoming farm boy gardeners throwing me into the Sydney Key that was right below us. And I kept saying, no, you don't understand. The big Rulon story will be out in a week. Wait till you see it. You're going to love it. But they didn't want to wait a week. That's not what the reading public had become. Now there was an internet. And it was in that moment that I realized everything had changed for me. From then on, it became a battle of speed, immediacy, sensationalism to a certain extent, versus the old way of doing things, which was rich detail, carefulness, literary allusions, and mostly length. And to a certain extent, that war between speed and detail still holds sway over American journalism. Now, finally, part 3, I'm going to call Wrangling with Race. As someone who covered mostly pro basketball, race always loomed over the sport, kind of like a nimbus cloud, if my high school science memory serves. Sometimes the cloud was just there. Sometimes it brought rain. I was a white man writing about mostly African-American athletes who played for mostly white coaches before largely white corporate audiences. Now, as time evolved, that changed. More African-American coaches came into the league. More and more newspapers began hiring young African-American men and women who might better communicate with young black superstars. And as that happened, more and more people would ask me, are you at a disadvantage? Wouldn't a young black basketball player rather talk to a young black writer than an old white man like you? And I really had to think about that. And here's my answer. I suppose that's true in some cases. But for all the years I covered sports, starting way back in 1971 with the Bethlehem Globe-Times, how many advantages did I have by being the white man covering mostly white teams coached by white coaches? How many black writers never got the opportunity to do what I did because the journalism business was largely the province of white males, which to a certain extent has changed, but only to an extent. Now I'm going to tie this thread into what I said in the beginning. Luck, providence. I got to Sports Illustrated in 1981, and for 4 years I was kind of like the overworked relief pitcher. Because I had come from newspapers, I could write fast, I could write on a variety of subjects, and that's what I did. During one 8-week period in 1982, I covered 8 different sports, including the World Championship of Squash, a sport that I had literally never even seen. But in 1985, SI asked me, well, they told me, that I was going to be the pro basketball writer. It was not viewed as an honor. In many respects, it was one of the worst beats at Sports Illustrated. Even though Magic and Bird were in the league, Michael Jordan was in his rookie year, and the NBA was just beginning to lift itself out of the doldrums of the 1970s. Again, an accident of timing. First of all, it was a sport I knew best. I had played it in high school and 1 year at Muhlenberg. I played it until I was 50 years old and tore my Achilles. I'd probably still be playing it if various orthopedic injuries hadn't taken hold. So I get there just when the NBA starts, not just to grow, but to explode. I was there when players like Jordan and Magic began to become crossover cultural figures, able to appeal to both blacks and whites, women and men. I was there when the Dream Team phenomenon exploded, and I was able to chronicle that. First for the magazine, then in a book, and later in a podcast. Journalism's a funny thing. To a large extent, you become known by the subjects you cover. There are newscasters, Dan Rather being one of them, who became famous because just by accident they were in Dallas in November of 1963 when President Kennedy was assassinated. Now, I don't want to overrate this pure luck thing. You still have to do the job. You still have to make the most of your chances. Luck, as someone once said, being the residue of design. But I do know that it's very unlikely you would have invited me to make this speech had I not happened to cover the NBA in its golden age. Remembering that great rock and roll movie of 20 years ago, I'm one of those people who are almost famous, purely by dint of being around famous people. Now, I think about those kind of things a lot lately. And if one can find something positive out of the pandemic, besides giving bicycle shops and exercise equipment a lot of business, and inspiring my wife to bake a lot of delicious bread, that it's caused us to take kind of what I would call a reckoning. The pure number of deaths, the exposure of the disparity between socioeconomic groups in terms of health care, the existential pain of so many people dying alone has caused us, I think, to look inside. At least it has me. To reevaluate, look at things differently. I write more carefully now. I'm active on social media, and I think before I write. Could that be construed as offensive? Is that hurting someone? I've always hated when people complain about political correctness, and now I hate it more. Are there times when we're too sensitive? I suppose so. But since the pandemic, I crave more political correctness, more thinking about ways that I can avoid hurting people with my words and actions. Now, finally, I want to mention what an honor this has been for me. I feel close to LifePath in two ways. First, a number of years ago, I was a volunteer for an organization that did what you did. I think it was on Adams Street in downtown Bethlehem, maybe through New Bethany Ministries. I worked with adults who needed help. I took them for groceries. I took them shopping. I mediated arguments between them, things like that. It was satisfying, but it was very, very difficult. And I salute you for doing that work. Now, the second reason I feel close to LifePath is a literal one. I live near your offices. I walk by them almost every day, en route to the bagel shop or Wawa or Starbucks. And many is the afternoon or morning I've taken my grandkids to the duck pond that's right there. And many is the morning or afternoon that we've watched the buses deliver or pick up your clients. My grandkids noticed the differences, the way they walked and talked, and we were able to discuss that. We talked about challenges and accepting differences, and we talked about people who work so hard in helping those who need help, those who follow, as Lincoln once said, the better angels of our nature. And so I salute LifePath and the work it does, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak.
So welcome everybody to our virtual panel discussion. I'm joined by three community members. First is Chris Persichetti, who is the Executive Vice President of American Bank. Chris?
Thank you, Jack. It's my pleasure to be here, and thank you for being our guest speaker this year. Much appreciated.
Sure, and next is Larry McLean. Larry is the first Vice President of Investments for Raymond James and Associates. Larry?
Also a great pleasure to be on with you, and I've been a long time fan of all your writings in Sports Illustrated, so thank you again for helping LifePath in this way.
I appreciate that, Larry. Finally, it's Barry Doble Sr., who is the president of Josh Early Candies, where I will be spending too much money and calories. So I'm a fan of Josh Early. So welcome, Barry.
Well, thank you, Jack, and happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thank you again for your participation in promoting LifePath. It's a wonderful cause, and I'm happy to be here as well.
Good, thanks. I think, so we're going to have a few questions. I think, Barry, you're going to lead off, and I'll see if I can answer them.
All right. I've been a Lehigh Valley resident my whole life, and you're a Lehigh Valley product. Which Lehigh Valley athlete's career have you followed most closely? And do you have any anecdotes that can connect us to that athlete?
I was a young writer at the Globe Times, and I went to a Lehigh wrestling meet, and Chuck Bednarik was there. And Chuck at that point was, the late, great Chuck Bednarik. Chuck was only in his 50s. I think he had been retired probably 14 years out of the league. And I saw him at this Lehigh wrestling meet acting like a nut, like he was standing up and he was waving his arms. And I said, man alive, this guy, I had never met him, even though I was an Eagles fan. And I decided, hey, there's never been a book about him. And I got in touch with him. And when I was 26, 27, I wrote a book about Chuck called Last of the 60-Minute Men. And I was at the Globe Times then, and it was very, really important to me. Chuck was really something special to me. And I would be remiss if I didn't single him out in my career.
As a follow-up question, who in your opinion is the best athlete to come out of the Lehigh Valley? I'll throw some names at you. Larry Miller, Mario Andretti, Matt Millen, Kurt Simmons, Chuck Bednarik, as you mentioned, Larry Holmes, Saquon Barkley, Ed McCaffrey. Pick one.
When I get asked a question about Do I think Michael Jordan's better than LeBron James? I always say you're always partial to the people you covered and you knew them the most. My best athlete I covered was Mike Gooman. And Mike was there in the mid-'70s, and he was a great football player, went on to play at Penn State, had a really great pro career, which people forget about. I mean, Mike was a fullback in the NFL for 9 or 10 years. Mike was a great baseball pitcher. I have no doubt he would have been in somebody's farm league. Mike was a hell of a basketball player too. So he was one of the last of those football, baseball, basketball stars. A great guy. I've certainly been with him in many few social situations. So Mike is one of the guys that I really remember. We're going to Larry now. Larry has a question.
I do. And I don't want to make this too serious, but I'm just curious about your thoughts with these never-ending, increasingly huge contracts that sports players are getting today. Do you see, what is your future perspective on pro sports?
Back in 1930, I was not around, and nobody on this call was. Babe Ruth made $80,000 per year. I went back and did research on this. It was a gigantic story. New York Times was all over the place, and somebody asked Babe, how do you feel making more money than the President of the United States? And he said, well, I had a better year. It was Herbert Hoover, which is probably true. I guess it was right going into the Depression. And so I guess that the idea of the athlete making too much money is not kind of a new thing. In the society we're in, there's so many things that are out of whack, and athletics is just one of them.
Well, thank you very much for that answer. I appreciate it.
Sure. Chris, we're going to Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. Jack, I've heard you talk multiple times at different events and different athletes. What athletes, Jack, has most influenced your career over the years?
That's a good question. You know, journalism's a funny thing. Your career is made by what you cover. I happen to be covering basketball, pro basketball in the 1980s. Along came Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Charles Barkley, Isaiah Thomas, Kevin McHale, Dominique Wilkins, name it. There are 35 names I could do. So I'm going to say probably the most important from that standpoint for me was probably Michael Jordan, because you couldn't write enough about Michael. He couldn't be on the cover of Sports Illustrated enough. And I was able to kind of plug into that, and I made my Sports Illustrated career out of it, wrote a book about the Dream Team, did a podcast about the Dream Team. So to a certain extent, I would have to say Michael was very important.
Awesome. Thank you, Jack.
Thanks a lot for that, guys. I'm usually the one asking the question, so it was good to be answering them. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Again, Jack.
And the show must go on, and I'm going to kick it back to Ashley.
Wow, what an incredible discussion. Thank you, Jack, for joining us today and leading such an intriguing and important conversation. As we close out our luncheon, I want to remind you there is still time to donate. So text 1974 to 44321. That's 1974 to 44321. And remember, you can still visit our website at lifepath.org to bid on our auction and get involved in our online raffle. All proceeds will go towards the purchase of these swings and will bring great joy to our LifePath family. With your help, we can continue to help individuals find success through the services LifePath offers, and any amount is appreciated. I want to thank our sponsors, our board of directors, and all of the winners for helping make this event so special. I'd also like to thank you for your support and for joining us virtually. I'm Ashley Russo, and from my home to yours, have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for watching. Please visit lifepath.org to check out the raffle and auction.